it's amazing to have a brand that does have a multi-generational brand awareness.
This is The Safari. The Safari is a tour around the consumer, brand, and retailing industry. And we have the great privilege here at my company, Traub, to really be exposed to many of the great minds of the industry who are forming and shaping the future of many different parts of the consumer brand and retail world. And I felt it was quite interesting for us to be able to not only learn from all of those people as we do every day, but memorialize it into a podcast, which could then be shared with many of our friends and clients and you, obviously, the listener.
Hi, this is Kate Doerge. Welcome back to The Safari. Today, I speak with Ed Bertouch, CEO of Roller Rabbit, the phenomenal, unique lifestyle brand. Ed and I talk about spreading joy with their multi-generational, loyal customer base and connecting with those communities through social media to inform their next exciting collaborations, retail strategies, and activations. This was a conversation filled with so much laughter and so much joy. I hope you all enjoy it. Well, welcome. I am thrilled to be here today with CEO of Roller Rabbit, Ed Bertouch. Welcome, Ed. This is so nice to see you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to chat.
I am as well. And where am I finding you today? Because your background looks fabulous.
I've got a lot of tchotchke on the wall. A lot of it is things that have been banished from the home but make a bit more sense in the office. So I'm in the Roller Rabbit offices, which is down in Hudson Square, I think they call it. It's basically West Village in Manhattan. And we have 30 or 40 people here. And it's great. We moved here a couple of years ago from the Garment District. So it's good to get into a little bit of a nice neighborhood. So it's been nice.
Love it. Well, it's very joyful. And as we talk about this brand being very joyful, I'm thrilled to have our listeners hear the story of what was Roberta Roller Rabbit.
Exactly. It was Roberta Roller Rabbit. And for a long time, I mean, the brand's, we had our 20-year anniversary last year, I think, which is kind of amazing.
Oh my gosh, that makes me feel so old because I remember when I first came to New York City and I felt like I discovered Roberta Roller Rabbit at the time on the Upper East Side in a tiny little store.
Yep.
And it was the caftans, I think, that it started. But yeah, I would love to hear a little bit about the history and have our listeners hear about it.
Yeah, that was the first store, I'm pretty sure, on Lex up there. And it was the store there for quite a long time. In fact, when the current, when we acquired the brand in 2017 and the current owners bought the brand from Roberta, that store was still there, the Lex store. We only just moved it over to Madison like a couple of years ago. But yeah, I mean, I think that's what I hear a lot from people when you mention Roller Rabbit or Roberta Freeman or Roberta Roller Rabbit. You hear a lot about that initial experience of this kind of world of that she really built it from the beginning, which is kind of like, we talk about it a lot here because it's not something that a lot of brands do that start now or have started in the last 5 or 10 years, where you're sort of really trying to build a lifestyle brand from the get-go. It's sort of the pendulum swung the other way where a lot of brands are doing, we're a handbag company or we're a shoe brand or we're a glasses brand or something. So she had this vision early on that was inspired by India and her trips there and block printing and fabrication there that she saw. And she kind of, I think, interpreted that whole aesthetic and that technique and textiles through the lens of the Upper East Side and kind of came out with this, what we all know about Roller Rabbit now, which is this lovely kind of combination of there's a whimsy there's a prep thing going on there from the New England influence, I feel like, and there's obviously this very strong underbed of artisanal textile and technique and fabrication, and that's how the brand started. It was home, like you said, it was resort wear, caftans. Right. It wasn't actually pajamas in the way that we know it today as being pajamas. They were woven pajamas, but yeah, it was very much a resort. I think a resort brand is a good description of it, but dipped into elements of home bedding and even hard goods. I think there was a period of time where Roberta was selling furniture out of the stores.
That's amazing.
Which, it was beautiful, like bone inlay stuff. I mean, stuff that's come back around now, that you're seeing. Just a really phenomenal brand, and I think one that's like very unique to New York at that time. So it's really quite special to be able to take it into the new iteration that it is now. And so the current owners of the brand, and which is a family office, and some of us at senior management are lucky enough to be partners with them, was acquired from Roberta in 2017. So it's really been since then that we've taken the reins and really, turned it into, as I said, this next iteration of what is really like quite a well-established brand. So I actually joined in 2019. I joined as Chief Operating Officer originally, and then kind of transitioned over to President and now into the CEO role. And it'll be my 5th year this year.
Wow. And so during that time, Ed, what have been the key factors that have been pivotal in the growth? Because it really has evolved and grown, quite dramatically over those years.
Yeah, it has, and I think there's probably no one thing, right? Like, I think that's always the case in our world in fashion. There was some really kind of clear operational things that we were able to do relatively quickly. I think any brand that was started in fashion in early 2000s or late 90s had wholesale, for example, as a really big part of their strategy.
Right.
It was e-com came a few years later, and so it was very much a brick and mortar and wholesale type platform that you had to build a brand off of. And so when we inherited the brand and when we bought the brand, it was like, I think they had 500 wholesale accounts,
Wow.
which is huge. And you can imagine, that a lot of the vast majority of that were kind of mom and pop stores around the country, and just this amazing deep penetrated network of wholesale accounts, which, was a lot of work. I think they had a really small wholesale team, and e-com was there, it was happening, but it was this kind of 30 almost split between the three channels. And so on top of that, we had a brand that had some early iterations of technology and platforms that it was operating on. So the e-com platform was a sort of more cumbersome one. And so those things we could fix relatively quickly.
Right.
They were like not the fun things. They were like the things we were like, all right, let's get this done. And then, simultaneously we tried to start to think about the product and the brand, which are really the things that ultimately, turn things around. And so it kind of happened in stages. It was like operational stuff. We brought in a whole bunch of amazing new people. We did experiment a bit here and there with some creative directors and things like that. And then ultimately what we kind of realized was that this is a brand that, while we can fix the platform, we can fix the back end, there's a couple of things that we really needed to focus on quickly. One of them was just the brand itself. So I think just updating some of the iconography and the visuals and the colors and kind of modernizing that. The second thing was marketing. I mean, there was no marketing department, for example, when the company was bought, which again, like now we think about that, we're like, oh my, like, how do you have a brand
without that
has 12 stores and 500 wholesale accounts and all this that doesn't have marketing? And it just was, Instagram wasn't a thing. Like, they would do photo shoots and they'd put them out, but it wasn't like that was a whole full-time department. So we brought in Carolyn Phillips is her name, and she's now kind of my right hand here. She's our CMO, and she's built out a marketing department here that, it's obviously a huge part of our business. And so it happened in these steps, and we put our focus on the e-com side of the business. We cleaned up some stores. We shut down some stores that weren't really profitable. We opened some new ones. A lot of experimentation. I think the thing that we realized in those early years was that there is no formula. And we were lucky that we had a brand that had a very, very strong DNA. And I think that also was something that we eventually came back to after those first few years of iterating around creative directors and having a heavy focus on ready to wear, and then sort of shifting that. And what we realized is that this brand really just has this phenomenal DNA, and it conjures up something in a lot of people's minds when they hear that the brand. And that's not something that you can create overnight. So let's harness that. And that's kind of been our ethos ever since.
Yeah, I love that. And I think you're exactly right. Again, from an avid fan and my kids and my kids' friends, it just goes on and on. The minute you say Roller Rabbit, it conjures up, beautiful imagery and happiness, right? Whether it's the cosmetic bag that you're taking on a vacation, it's the pajamas you wear at night, it's it's the different items that are just part of your life. And you have a very loyal customer base.
Hugely loyal. Yeah. And it's multi-generational too. There's this really nice trust between, the daughter and the mum and the grandma. And we talk about those 3 or 4 distinct groups here all the time. And we try to make sure that we're doing things for each of them. Because there's this, again, to me, it's very unique having worked in and around the industry for 20 odd years now, and like with other brands and founder brands and things like that. It's amazing to have a brand that does have a multi-generational brand awareness and trust.
Yeah.
It's challenging for sure. Cause I remember like one of the early mantras that was hammered into me when I first moved to New York was, don't try to be everything to everyone. Mm-hmm. Like that's the death knell, and again, I think that was kind of the pivot away from lifestyle brands into single product category brands. And again, I feel like now you can actually speak to a lot of people. I mean, I think you need to still be careful with it, but all of these different platforms that we have access to now from a technology and social media point of view means that you actually can. It's hard. I mean, I think it's one of the biggest challenges that we have is that we have 5 or 6 significant categories and 5 or 6 groups of customers, but we're not Ralph Lauren. We're not a really large brand.
Right.
But we do feel like it's a really key part of what we've managed to do with this brand. When you talk about what were the things that contributed to the success the last couple of years, I think that is one that we haven't also forgotten that. And we've made sure that the mum and the grandma are also looked after. But underneath that, we've got this incredible wave of young, enthusiastic customers that, again, I think knew the brand. I think it was maybe a household name. But now we very much intentionally providing products and moments and feelings to those guys as well.
And that I was going to ask about that because I think you all have done a fantastic job with hearing your customer, listening to your customer, staying engaged with them, because you have, how many brick and mortar did you say? 11?
We're 11, yeah.
11, okay. And what regions? Again, talk to us about where you are.
So we have quite a few over kind of here in the Tri-State New England area. So we have 2 out in the Hamptons, East Hampton, we've got Southampton, we've got flagship up on Madison Avenue. We've got a really great store out in Greenwich. And then, then we go down south a little bit. We've got Palm Beach, which is a great store for us.
Yeah.
Charleston, which we opened only 3 years ago, which has been one of our sort of most incredible stores. And then we have Lido over in Orange County. So kind of spread on the coast. And then we've got a couple. We've also got Dallas and we've got Austin, Texas as well. And most of those almost all of them are relatively new with like 3 or 4 exceptions. So we've sort of shuffled things around, moved them. But, again, to give credit where credit is due, Roberta always opens stores in the best spots.
Yeah, and great locations. Exactly.
Yeah. And so, when you look at our East Hampton store, or, some of these ones that have been part of the portfolio, both pre and post acquisition, there was definitely some foresight there with location, and stores are so important to us. I mean, going back to the wholesale discussion, we ended up actually closing wholesale completely.
When was that? Was that of late, or
was the end of 2022? Okay. So relatively recently. Yeah, it was for sure one of the hardest decisions I think we made from a strategic point of view. We did edit, when we inherited all of the 500 odd accounts, we did edit it back, and we had a great wholesale business. We worked with some really good partners and all the majors for the most part. We still maintain relationships with a lot of smaller shops as well. It was a really important part of the business. I think what we realized going deep into the kind of analytical side of it was that we just simply weren't set up to make it efficient. I think was what we really discovered. And so it wasn't so much of a case of saying that we don't believe in wholesale as a strategy or as a channel of distribution, because we very much do. But the way that we are now, the way that everything's set up, we're not able to do it in the way that we should at this scale. And so we made that decision to shut it down. And it was the right one, it turns out. I mean, the focus of D2C has just been incredible for us. And that did make the stores that much more important, because it became one of the only physical interactions that we had with our customers.
Well, and then how do you translate to online? Because if you're really focusing on D2C with your brick and mortar and your e-com, certainly you walk into every Roller Rabbit store and you feel it, the lifestyle, you just immediately connect with the brand. There's got to be a challenge of having that same experience online. So how have you been able to solve that, given that you are also closing these wholesale markets, and how important e-com is now?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think that what we've experienced is that the best way to try to translate a full world for Roller Rabbit online is not our website, not rollerrabbit.com specifically. It's really through social media. Yeah. I mean, I think, it's through TikTok and it's through Instagram. And we've had this really amazing organic growth in a platform like TikTok, where we get to truly interact with the customers. And I think a lot of the content out there around Roller Rabbit and the hashtag Roller Rabbit on TikTok, we have sort of millions of followers now. It's almost all user generated, organic, real life stuff for the most part. And so, we find that by the time someone gets to rollerrabbit.com, they're pretty much ready to buy something. I think they know what they're looking for at that point. They're ready to transact. And I think that we still try to make the web experience, like everybody, like every brand, still representative of us as a brand. But I think over the last 5-10 years, that's just the actual website has become less and less of a vehicle through which to tell that story. Yeah. And I think that, the front line of social media is where the lifestyle stuff happens.
Absolutely. I mean, it's incredible, to think about the brands who launched 20 years ago, or longer. And when they didn't have social media, right? Just it's amazing.
Yeah, what did they do?
What did they do?
What did we do back then?
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
What did we all, I mean, yeah, it's such a different world. And I mean, it's affected everything now. And the thing that we find amazing is like you still have to do photo shoots all the time, right? But it's not like at the level of a campaign to place into a magazine and you do it 4 or 5 times a year. You got to produce content every day. It's constant, so that the functional budget of marketing has gone up for all of us. It's become more expensive, even though the barrier from a communication point of view has come all the way down.
Yeah.
It's a totally different time.
It is. But then there's opportunities like partnerships and collaborations that you do, keeping, front of mind, aligning with other brands and continuing to keep that buzz and that brand awareness fresh. So I want to talk about some of your exciting collaborations and a recent one, which blows my mind. But can you give us a little background on the most recent one?
I assume you talk about Love Shack Fancy.
Yes.
And, it was epic. I mean, I think, talk about joy and those tenets of Roller Rabbit and the print and the color and all that. Love Shack obviously has so much crossover when it comes to that approach to doing what we do, to doing fashion and doing clothing and accessories. And so, like all of our best collabs, that one just came about super naturally. It was actually Stacey Lillian, the president over there, got in touch, and she's got a daughter who's a huge fan of Roller Rabbit. And that was the origin of the discussion. It was like, hey, like we should do this and make it work. And it was super organic, and it was something that happened very naturally, and the two teams worked very well together. But we thought it would do well. I think both companies were just blown away by the response, completely blown away, and to the extent that we had to kind of rethink about how we make sure everyone's happy and everyone gets their hands on the product. So we did a pre-sale a couple of days later, and amazingly, and this is again testament to that customer, which I think is phenomenal. They're happy to wait for some of this product.
Yeah.
Which I think is amazing. I think it goes back to this idea that if the quality of the product is there and the attention is there, and there's something that's been done somewhat intentionally, then people are willing to wait for it.
Yeah.
But that was just an epic collab, and I think we have some other stuff planned with those guys, which we're all really excited about. But collaborations has become, again, I feel like this is not exclusive to us. I think it's something that's just part of our industry now. It's just become a really fun, interesting way to work with other brands and other companies.
Yeah, and increase your awareness. And listen, I'm all about collaboration. So I think, it extends everyone's perspective and awareness of brands going to different customers. And in this case, Love Shack Fancy, you pretty much have the same customer, but it just builds and builds. So, I want to talk about, again, the idea of preserving quality of product, because you just touched upon that, but it's very important here with your hand block printing traditions, right? The DNA of the brand, but still maintaining and being a successful modern brand. So tell us a little bit of your hand block printing.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing to see it firsthand. For starters, it's one of those techniques, and I've been lucky to see different factories around the world, and it's one of those ones that I still think about. I mean, you walk into a block printing room in India, and it's like meditative. It's so quiet. Like there's no sound except for the like dull kind of thud of every time they hammer these blocks down on a long length. Like it really is beautiful.
Wow.
And it's a big part of the history of this brand, and it's something that was part of the brand from the beginning, and it's something that we have been very, very careful to maintain in whatever way that we can. And that's true of the product, other aspects, I guess, of the product that we've done as well. I don't think that it wouldn't have been unusual, or wouldn't have been at least surprising, I think, if a different group came in, bought a brand. And one of the obvious things that we could have done was shifted the production, to somewhere that had more efficient, had bigger economies of scale, all that type of thing. We never did that. We kept most of the wovens and the ready-to-wear and the bedding in India, and we kept all of the jersey, all of the knit, all of the Pima cotton-based pajamas in Peru. We did do a little bit of work. We've introduced a couple more factories in places like Portugal. We've done some stuff domestically, but by and large, like 95% of Roller Rabbit's product hasn't changed in country of origin, which I think has also been a really key part of why we've been able to grow this brand the way we have, is because, again, the reality is that the customer responds to quality and product and to value, and they're not inexpensive pajamas, and they're not inexpensive ready to wear. We're not a luxury brand, but we certainly are. In the world of pajamas, we're a somewhat luxury price point. So the block printing technique is a big part of that, and then on top of that, there's hand embroidery work, and there's all these different elements that we've kept in place, and so. The block printing, we still do it in a lot of our ready-to-wear. I mean, and a good example of how we've preserved it is, a lot of our pajamas are made in Peru, and there's no block printing in Peru for the most part. Also, we make pajamas at a volume now with factories down there that it's a series of different, whether it's rotary print or discharge printing or screen printing, they're kind of different methods that we use on our pajamas specifically. Anytime we design a new character or a new print that we want to put on a pajama that may not actually be made in India in any capacity, we actually still work with our Indian factories to carve a block. They then apply it to a woven material, and then we digitize it from that. And then we send that down to Peru, and then the Peruvians then apply that in a digital print, for example. So while it's not a true block print, there is something very three-dimensional and beautiful when you look at a block print compared to a straight from the beginning graphic design oriented print. So we really, really do try to maintain all of those techniques like as much as we can, because again, as I said, it's just like, it's so beautiful and you just don't want to lose it.
That's an incredible process. And in terms of your characters, how many do you have, and how often are you introducing new ones? Because I think that, I love seeing whether it's the, it's the hearts, it's the holidays, you have the nutcracker, there's so many options.
Yeah, I mean, the monkeys is the one that think is the one
yes.
that, that everyone knows and loves, and we iterate on the monkeys all the time. There's no kind of shortage of places and outfits that we can put the monkey in. And the hearts is the other big one. And then, I mean, look, that we have folders of archival prints here, and they're all animal prints and beautiful toiles, and we're just now actually starting to reintroduce quite a lot of those into the collection. And then from a character point of view, which we've got a bunch launching this year, actually, quite a few new animals, which would be fun. We've crowdsourced some stuff there. We always go back to our friends on TikTok and ask them what they would like. So I think we've got 3 or 4 this year. So every couple of years we'll try to do a few new ones. But again, there must be 400 or 500 swatches in the office of archival fabrics here that are block printed variations on floral and animal techniques. It's amazing.
It's so great. And what we talked about earlier on is, this brand spreads so much joy, and those that wear the pajamas or the caftans or what have you, you just immediately feel that joy with the characters and with the different designs. But I want to talk about how the brand's mission to spread joy beyond the products into different community initiatives.
Yeah, I mean, it's a natural progression for a brand like ours that's lucky enough, as we chatted about, to have multi-generational families as part of our core customer base. And we do so much in pajamas, and pajamas is really about being with your friends and family, if you think about it. And so, we try to do a lot of extended then from that into the community. And one of the things that we've done for a few years now is we've worked with this company called Beam Impact. Really incredible company that was founded by 2 women, Vivica and Alex, their names. They started this it's really a tech charity-based company, and they've gotten a lot of backing now with Forbes 30 under 30, just really smart women, and their platform plugs into our websites. So Roller Rabbit's not the only brand that we have. We have 2 others. So all 3 of our brands, when you go to the point of checkout, there are 4 different charities there that or initiatives, and we change them. And the typical historical thing has been, hey, thanks for your purchase. Would you like to round up and send 50 more cents to one of these charities? Or would you like to, donate another? Which is great. And I think that's super important. What Beam does is they put it back onto the company. The onus is on us. So they say to the customer as they check out, thank you so much. Would you like Roller Rabbit to take, 1%, 2% of this sale and donate it to one of these charities? And if so, which one would you like? And so it's really just coming straight out of the bottom line of us. And we have, right now we have 6 different charities that we're working with there. And it depends on what it is. We try to make it related to us and our mission, whether it's our community or our supply chain. So, we work with the India Water Project, for example, which is just all about trying to get clean water in the hands of communities there, given the fact that we obviously do a lot of dye-based printing and things that are for sure harmful to the environment. So we are trying to tackle that at both ends. We do work with Salud for pediatric cancer. We do work with the Indian Youth Fund. We do work with an artisan fund, which is designed to, provide fellowships to young artists in India and Peru. And so, that's one way that I think we, feel like we've seen some really strong response from customers to get involved with that. And that's something that we want to just keep building on. And then, on top of that, I think there's always this opportunity to work with charities directly and with companies directly when it comes to designing product and selling it and giving them some money. I mean, that we've seen some really good success there too. We worked with the Williams syndrome group to do a blue lobster print, which was a really big success a couple of years ago. We work with the Breast Cancer Alliance every year. So, yeah, look, I think it's one of those things where it's a little bit like everything that we do. I think there's always these natural relationships that happen. And whenever that happens and whenever we're able to build upon that, it seems to resonate with the community.
When it's organic and authentic and real. Well, I want to talk, because we've talked about e-com, we've talked about your customer base, we've talked about your brick and mortar, but what does the future look like in terms of your retail growth strategy?
It's super important to us. I mean, I think, again, if you're not really pushing wholesale, and I think we never say never, and I think there's a world in which we could do some really interesting, intentional wholesale work with some partners. Brick and mortar becomes super important. And I think we believe strongly in having physical stores, and we'd like to continue to open stores in the markets that, we see an opportunity in. And so we're somewhat bearish about it, I would say. If you were to compare us to some other brands of our size, we're not interested in opening 5, 6, 7 stores a year.
Yeah.
But I think we would like to sort of think about 1 or 2 here and there when the opportunity arises and it makes sense.
And what markets are you thinking about? Because you're predominantly the East Coast. You've, as you said, so Dallas, Texas. You've got a couple of those, but what's next?
Yeah, we follow the e-com data quite a lot, and we see this really strong following in places like Charlotte and places like Atlanta. We actually used to have a store in Atlanta, but I think it was probably in the wrong location. But we have a huge following there online. LA is actually an interesting one. There was a really lovely Roller Rabbit store in Brentwood Country Mart for a long time, which went away prior to our acquisition, and then we sort of opened here and there, and it never quite found the right spot. But I think there's really a very similar to New York, there's a very built-in customer base in LA, so it'd be great to open there. We recently opened our first outlet in Nashville, which is super interesting to us. It's not a brand that's ever had an outlet before, and that's doing really well. So yeah, I think Roller Rabbit's a unique brand as well, in that it can open in resort towns and it can open in university towns. It doesn't have to be big tier 1 flagship cities,
right?
Which is fun too, because we've actually seen some of our, as I said, like Charleston's a great example. It's one of our smallest stores. It's a tiny little thing, but just is punched so far above its weight, which is great. So I think there's a lot of those towns that are on our radar as well.
Yeah. Opportunity campuses. That's really interesting. The college towns, because you have such a loyal following, among that generation. And those are the ones, as you were saying, who are on TikTok, who are, using that Roller Rabbit hashtag and creating the brand awareness for you.
Yeah, exactly. And without giving it all away, this summer in the lead up to college, there's going to be a fun program that we're going to roll out, which is not a brick and mortar store, but it is something that is going to involve campuses. And yeah, look, I mean, it's so fun to be able to interact with that group, because as you said, they're so active on social, but they also they love product. They love the product that we do. And so we've got some fun activations going on there in August of this year as well.
Oh, that's so exciting. Well, I was going to say, they're also going to tell you what they like and they don't like. So they're,
exactly.
Right.
For better or worse.
For better or for worse. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a perfect place. I do not want to take up your entire day, but it gives us anticipation for what's to come. And we will certainly keep our eyes and ears very wide open. And it's been truly a joy, Ed, to hear about your journey and the journey of Roller Rabbit. And I love this brand so much. It truly, I wear the pajamas nightly. So it's very close to me. But I so appreciate your time. And I don't know if there's anything we've missed out that you want to tell our listeners.
No, I think you covered everything. Thanks so much for having me. It's been great to chat, as always.
It's been great to chat. And for our listeners, go check out a Roller Rabbit store online, TikTok, Instagram. You have a big, robust, engaged following. So I hope.
Yeah, and come by. I think we've got in 2 weeks from now, I just remembered we've got a pop-up downtown in Nolita.
Oh, great.
Which will be from the 3rd of next month. So we'll be down there for 2 weeks. We've got Bluestone Lane doing stuff with those guys. There'll be embroidery machines. There'll be artists there hand painting some of our stuff. So that'll be fun. So everyone should come by there.
Oh my gosh. I love it. Okay, New Yorkers, get downtown. Go check out Roller Rabbit and bring some joy into your life. So, Ed, thanks so much. This has been great. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day and look forward to seeing you soon.
If you want to learn a little bit more about Traub, you can go to traub.io, where you'll learn a lot about everything that we do. If you're enjoying the safari, please do share it with your friends and colleagues within the industry. And please also don't forget to subscribe and like it. Until next time.